an amazing opportunity to be able to be here in San Diego, but also have so many people joining us over the web. It doesn't happen very often, and I really feel like very privileged to be here able to contribute to this conversation. It's invested by the federal government in terms of the conversation to provide research resources for institutions. After World War II, there was new partnerships that were developed between industry and institutions that contributed to this public service agenda. But by 1980, there were concerns around these relationships between educational institutions and industry. Today, universities prepare highly trained specialists, they develop expert knowledge, and they promote scientific advances. There's no doubt that there are many positives that come out of these partnerships with industry. But I think it's important to pause for a moment and really talk about what is commercialization. Certainly these partnerships and whatnot. But how do we define it? What is it? Again, Dr. Bach from Harvard University, he defined it as the ways in which institutions are entrepreneurial. The ways in which institutions profit from their intellectual work. They profit from their teaching, research, and other campus activities. Slaughter and Rhodes coined the term academic capitalism, and they really introduced the idea that institutions treat knowledge and the generation of new knowledge as raw material that can be sold. So how does universities profit from the sales of their intellectual property? The investments in federal grants and donations result in patents and licensing that really fuel funds back to the institution, but also fuel innovation through startups that also contribute dollars back to the institution. So let's talk a little bit more about patent activity. We know that before 1991, research institutions filed less than 250 patents per year. By 1999, there were over 5,500 patents issued. And by 2010, there were 6,100 new patents, and this resulted in $3.6 billion in licensing income to those institutions. Much of the patent activity, the research activity from those patents, is generated by the same institutions that are seen competing on Saturdays in Division I FBS football games. Just want to underscore that. The same institutions that are generating these patents are also the same institutions that are competing in our top 25 in FBS. Here's another example about the ways in which commercialization occurs in the academy. So for those of you that can see the slides, on the left-hand side of the screen, you'll see the licensing income. This is the top 10 institutions and their licensing income from 2010. And this is all information that's from the Chronicle of Higher Education. So Northwestern University is a bit of an outlier. In that particular year, there was probably a particular special instance or circumstance. But if you look at the other 9 institutions on the slide, institutions of higher education are bringing in licensing income anywhere from $50 million to $100 million. On the right-hand side of the slide, and we look at the research spending, you'll see the University of California, that's the S, designates the University of California system, and then the University of Texas system. So those figures are quite a bit above the others on the top 10 list. But you can also see that institutions are spending anywhere from $850 to over $100 million to over $1 billion in research spending. So the question that I have when I see these figures about the amount of money that's generated in licensing and the amount of money that's spent on research spending, really why? Why is it? Is it just driven by these economic forces that we as institutions are made up of individuals, and we are just unable to resist these market forces? And one thing I would suggest, and this also comes from Darren Bach, that universities are forever competing. Institutions are highly competitive with their peers and with others across the nation. They compete for the best students and faculty. They compete for that expert knowledge. They compete for those experts that can bring in those research dollars or secure those partnerships for innovation that will create new programs for the institution. And institutions also compete in terms of being first for those scientific advances and innovations. This really presents real challenges in terms of keeping commercialization within bounds. Highly competitive individuals and institutions present real problems for keeping commercialization maintained. There's always the concept of revenue in the also ask, is it really just the market economy and this drive for competition? I think there is something else that we also need to hold when we're thinking about this relationship between athletics and education and the tensions between market interest and education mission. The other driver in all of this has to do with the drive for prestige and status. It's not enough for top universities to simply sustain their programs. Quote, there must be widespread perception of continued improvement and increasing status. So if you're at the top, it's very important that you continue to stay at the top in terms of how your peers view you. For institutions that are trying to enter the upper echelon of status, the quickest route is often through new academic specialties. Finally, there's very good research of Stanford University where they illustrated how athletic conferences contribute to this status system within the academy in the ways in which schools are grouped together and peers form around athletic conferences. They showed how athletics and conference affiliation play a role in the cultivation and the perception of status. So who is across from you at the line of scrimmage matters, and what conference you are in matters. Not just for your athletic success, but for the perception and the status of your institution. So to bring it back to the beginning, and to begin to summarize, the gridiron marketplace is situated in this broader higher education market. We know that institutions are competing with one another for students, for research dollars, all of that innovation. We know that they compete for fundraising, and we know that they compete for prestige. Athletics revenue infuses resources into the system that is already very well versed at capitalizing on the ways in which institutions compete with one another. Let me just say that again. The system of athletics in the gridiron marketplace really capitalizes on the system for competition that institutions inherently are part of, that inherent drive of higher education. When we're thinking about this tension between educational mission and market interests and holding those tensions and how we balance those tensions both within our athletic departments and across the academy, we have to really remember that our higher education, our FPS football programs are situated in our institutions of higher education. And colleges and universities have become increasingly entrepreneurial in the past decade in response to the decreasing resources and increasing demands. This is the landscape that our athletic programs are situated in. Decisions related to research facilities and related curricular priorities may also be influenced by the flow of external dollars. These are the same challenges that our higher education institutions are dealing with, same as our athletic programs. Thus, the consideration of commercialization in athletics needs to take into account the broader context of incentives and affirmation for being entrepreneurial across universities. So to close, I just want to contribute to this conversation when we're thinking about student athletes and student athlete rights, and the ways in which commercialization is driving the place that we are at with our student athletes, that this is all embedded in these larger tensions that are already occurring in our institution. And to really have that impact and reform for our student athletes, we have to be able to think about how is athletics behaving similarly or differently than the institution. And if we want to have change in the world of athletics, how much do we also need to consider changes that we might want to be considering in the institution themselves? Are we really going to be able to make a change in athletics without addressing how it's situated in the broader context of our institutions?
Question?
Let's see that, and then what?
When you were doing your research to look at the patents, did you notice whether like who was professors or students?
I can't answer that question specifically. There is some really good research coming out about the patent activity and the defense of that activity, and how that is creating its own industry of itself. But I think if I understand your question, who's generating those patents? Do you mean like which scientists on campus, which faculty on campus?
Right, and I guess more broadly, like, is it faculty or is it are they systems or is it who? I guess who actually?
Yeah. And I apologize that I can't answer that specifically, but one thing that I would sort of throw into that mix of questions is when we are comparing our celebrity coaches with our celebrity faculty, I think we need to be clear, are we talking about those that have the capacity to generate revenue for the institution? There's one head football coach, and there's many, many, many faculty on campus. And when we make those comparisons around salaries and things between the head football coach and the faculty, those really aren't fair comparisons. I do think we should be comparing what happens with the celebrity football coach with those celebrity scientists, if you will. I think that's a more fair way to make those comparisons. Thank you.
I really appreciate the presentation, and I went back to that comment that you made in reference to their thought and saying what was usually up there in your mind. And I understand that now elucidate that. Part of me starts wondering, just in terms of thinking about systemic scapegoating determined, if there's a way, it's almost like this is, best kept secret institutional, and there might be a less than conscious or conscious vested interest in having athletics take around and be the repository for this commercialization that actually is widespread across universities.
And I think this issue of commercialization within higher education, it's discussed. It's definitely an issue, but it doesn't sit with the dialogue and the discourse around athletics. Whether it's conscious or unconscious, athletics is the most visible, because of its presence on television. And yes, you can see the classrooms, and yes, you can see the large lecture halls, but it's really difficult to see the other types of innovation and resources that are being invested in on the industry side of the institution. On the other hand, it is part of the public mission of research institutions. And so institutions really, and as I've read and presented today, it is a real tension, and it's very difficult for institutions to figure out how far do we go with these investments to produce educated workforce, contribute to our economy, and how much is too much. But because institutions are inherently competitive, and there is this drive for prestige and status, it makes teasing that out very difficult. And I would add that we should be careful about asking athletics to reform in ways that we're not asking the institution to reform, because anything that we do in athletics that's too far outside the bounds of the institution itself is going to fall short, I think.